All right, guys, welcome back. League of Inches, and got another team preview for 2021, which is this time the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and a lot of glory to South Sydney. I think is going to be heard this year, and then that song's going to get stuck in a lot of people's heads, with many like myself predicting a very successful season for the Bunnies, which I know it's got Dre here, and a lot of the fans for the Rabbitohs excited. Many are commenting and sending me things on the page, and do appreciate all the love once again. But got Dre here. He's from the Rugby League Modern Day Prince page, and really got good content. He's got a lot of design things, a lot of jersey logo designs. He's also got quite a few posts regarding lineups and things like that, and some good collaborations that he's got going at the moment. And was kind enough to get me on board to do my Parramatta side, and some really good digital content as well. His posts look really good. He's really made a really good dig of getting in there, and got some really good content. So Dre, thanks for coming on. Just tell us a little bit about the page, and then a little bit about what made you become a South fan, and things like that.
Sweet. Well, Joel, thanks for having me on board first. You're doing some awesome stuff with your own page, and things like that are really getting a lot of collaboration between different people who love rugby league and people with different pages. Started following the Souths around 2007, which was obviously a good time to sort of jump on board. But in primary school, my PE teacher was a huge Souths fan. And one day, any chance he kind of got, he'd bring in the players to, come and talk to the kids, about health and sport and everything. And I remember one day, two players came in. There was Bo Champion and someone else. I can't remember who that was, but I remember Bo Champion because he had the coolest name ever. Like, I thought this guy's awesome. And they were sort of talking about, the team in 2006. They come last. They're underdogs. And I really sort of like that narrative. I mean, like, as Aussies, we love an underdog story. And a lot of my mates loved footy and loved sport, and I didn't really get into it. So I thought, I'll jump on the South bandwagon. And I got home and I told my parents, and they were just like, yeah, man, you've like missed the boat. We were already South fans. So I guess it was sort of meant to be. And ever since then, really been into it. I was lucky enough to actually work there in the last couple of years as a content producer, which was awesome to see, just the different side of things, actually getting into the inner sanctum of things. And I think 2021 is looking to be a good year, but, we'll see how it goes, because the last 3 years ended in real disappointment despite all the upside that they've brought.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned this 2021 season. Let's get into it and have a chat about it. First of all, I want to know who you think's your best signing for the 2021 season.
Well, if we go back a month, maybe, easily it would have been Jai Arrow. Everyone would have said, he's an Origin rep. He's a workhorse that I guess, in a way, rounds off the South's pack. But I've actually gone for Josh Mansour. And the reason is that even though Arrow's a great signing, he's a great player, the forward packs, the forward pack did the job last year. I don't think there was any real weakness that it had that Jai Arrow can really patch up. Now, he's going to be good. It'll be interesting to see where he fits. But with Mansour, I think he just sort of rounds off the back line. Obviously, Jackson Paulo had a really great year last year, but I think it's good that we've brought in someone with experience. And it sort of softens the blow of the Corey Allen loss. I think a lot of people were shocked by that, but realistically, I think it was sort of expected. And Mansour also coming in as a winger, he sort of rounds off the outside backs for South, particularly in the depth. He's got experience. He comes back to the club he originally started off with in the under-20s. And then you sort of look at Benji Marshall, which is awesome. Like, I love seeing him in red and green now, but, he's going to have a bench or a backup role. He's not going to be that imperative unless injuries hit, whereas I think Mansour is sort of a guarantee to start the season. I mean, Arrow might even start off the bench, because we saw in Origin, Wayne didn't even, it's Wayne's new signing and everything. Like, he pretty much brought him down, but he said, you got to work for a starting spot, and he ended up coming off the bench. So, I'm really liking the look of Josh Mansour, particularly his experience, and particularly the fact that he's a workhorse kind of winger, and it's someone that we kind of need in that back line, just someone who's eating up meters. I think he averaged like 180 meters.
Yeah.
Last season. So yeah.
Yeah, he's like having another forward on the field, and those wingers coming out from their own end is something that a lot of teams underestimate. And when you do have those big wingers and they can get you set off to a 20, 30-meter head start, it just helps the forwards. And I did mention, you mentioned the name, obviously, Guy Arrow. I just thought in terms of just having that quality of player in your lineup, just to add a bit of cherry on top to, as you've already said, what is a great forward pack and has showed what they can do. They're probably underrated as a forward pack. A lot of people don't talk about them being as one of the top, I guess, up there with some of the other packs like your Parramatta and I guess your Roosters and things like that. But they're really up there for mine, and they're especially with this add-on now to have Arrow. I guess the only little downfall, it could add a bit of. I know you got Murray there as a lock as well, so there could be a little bit of a shake-up now with the forward pack. So you just don't know how that can players. So it'll be interesting how that goes over the first few weeks. But I think, as you mentioned, Mansour, Benji, just for an experienced side, even if he doesn't play, just his expertise. And I said it in a post last week, I actually think he'll bring Latrell to another level. I think he'll help him with his game management and passing game and things like that. So some really exciting signings for South. What about your biggest loss from 2020? What's a player that you go, I really wish he was here still this year? It'd really benefit us.
There was a couple, and I think with South, we haven't really had any big losses in terms of an experienced starting player that's been for years. Those guys are still in the core makeup of the squad, but a lot of people would be inclined to say Corey Allen, but I think if we sort of kept him on, he probably wouldn't have gotten that much game time. But someone who I really liked in 2020 was actually Bailey Cyranon. Now, Ciro didn't even start the year last year. He wasn't even playing off the bench, and then eventually he sort of made his way into the side. I think Ethan Lowe's unfortunate injury sort of gave him that opportunity, and he just took it with both hands. And I think there might have been a little bit of doubt as to what kind of role he would have played in the side, but he really just took that edge back row spot by the scruff of the neck. And to see his development, like, it was exponential throughout the year, and I was really looking forward to seeing him to see what he could do in 2021. We actually re-signed him for a year before releasing him to the Warriors, but I'm happy that he's gone to a club that he'll get more game time out. I think that's probably the best outcome, because he's a good bloke, he's a good young player. I think he'll lock down the Warriors 13 spot, and he's a player that really suits lock, but he can play on the edges as well. Even though he's not that big of a body, he's just got that tenacity. He's a terrier, and that's what I really like seeing in the back row. And I think the other thing there is also, again, I think you sort of mentioned it, the shake-up of the forward pack. We've got two locks in Arrow and Murray. Personally, I think Arrow is going to take over that left edge spot, but he is suited to the middle, a lot of people are saying. But I think he sort of played a lot of back row at the end of the year with the Titans. They actually moved him around quite a bit because, obviously, knowing he signed with South, I wanted to follow him as much as possible. So I was watching Titans games, and I noticed that him coming off the bench, moving around a bit. But yeah, I think Ciro's a loss. It's not. I don't think it'll really hurt us in the long run, because you got Arrow, you got Jacob Host, who's another signing. There's plenty of depth there on the edges. So, but it was just one of those things where it was really sad to see him go, because I saw how much progression he made, not only last year, but through the Canterbury Cup, ever since he signed in 2019. So, yeah, I think Ciro's my biggest loss.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. I did mention, as you said, the obvious one, which would be Corey Allen. I just thought, in terms of a selfish reason for South, just the depth that he provided around, I guess you can't say Origin time anymore because he was an Origin player, but just around those injuries to Latrell and that, once you had him come in, it was like almost, he obviously wasn't Latrell's level, but he was almost made it look like Latrell was still there with just how he was able to play and chime in with that. So as a selfish point of view, for the club, it would have been nice to have that depth still there, but you can't really deny a player of that talent a full-time gig, which you'll now get at the Dogs. So what about your key reasons for success? A lot of people, as I said, it's glory to South Sydney this year. And what do you think is the biggest driving factor for that?
I'm going to go with a really obvious one and go with, I'm calling it Wayne's Last Dance. It's Wayne's last year as head coach. We don't know if he's going to take up an administration role. Probably won't, from like what people are saying. But yeah, it's Wayne's last year at the club, and man, I remember him coming in, and it was just such a whirlwind. Like I was still working at the club at the time. It was just a huge shock, and now it's been a couple of years, and he's gotten that close, but no cigar. So I think in rugby league, when you've got so many teams on a similar level, there's the Raiders, there's the Panthers, there's the Storm, there's even the Roosters, even though they've dropped off a little bit. Eels, Knights, like you can name most of the top 8 from last year that'll probably be there or even improve. And so those sort of off-field things make all the difference. That's a huge motivation for them. I think South's top 30 squad's probably top 2 in the competition, I'd say, in terms of just talent and depth, variety, and we know what Wayne can do. He's turned players who probably weren't starting at other clubs into starting players and stars at Souths. And with the acquisitions we've sort of got, you've got Moga, Jacob Host, Tane Milne. At a lot of clubs, they would actually be starting players. The Dragons, Jacob Host could easily have a starting back row spot, but now he's come in, and there's every chance he might not even make the bench for us. So the talent's there, but I think the motivation for the players is going to be sending off Wayne on a high note before Jason Demetriou comes in 2022.
Yeah, I mentioned the exact same thing. I did mention, as you said, the squad as well, just overall. I think it's got tremendous depth this year, which should help you through Origin time and things like that. And I think the benefactor, I was reading something this morning. I have a sneaky suspicion he will probably go around, and I reckon he'll end up coaching the new side that ends up coming in and around that 2022 period, so 2023. So I think that'll have a lot of upside to him and a lot of appeal. So just watch this space and watch what Bennett does. So what about your biggest concern for the year? Is there something that you look back and you look at and you think, oh, can we just make sure we get this right, please?
Definitely the preliminary final hoodoo. One thing I will mention is that, people will say this is an excuse, but I say for every team, it's a reason, and that's injuries worry me. And it's not the fact that maybe players are injury prone, but it's just the fact that injuries could strike at any time. And I think we saw in last year's prelim, Campbell Graham was out. Junior Totola and Bailey Cyranon got taken out in the first half hour, and then Corey Allen got injured, so he was relegated to the wing. And the team came within 6 points. Like a lot of people were saying, if they had 5 or 10 more minutes, they'd probably have beaten the Panthers. But like those injuries are just such shitty things to cop, especially at that time of year, especially in that scenario. So it's a matter of if they can get injuries right, but also, overcoming that preliminary final hoodoo. Like I didn't think people expected them to sort of make it in 2020. They finished 6th on the ladder in regular season and just sort of got over the Knights. And then I think they took advantage of the fact that the Knights and the Eels haven't really played that many finals. So I think that was sort of a big motivation for them. But watching them lose the prelims has absolutely killed me the last few years, especially against the teams we've come up against. You got Roosters in 2018, which is one of the worst feelings I've ever had regarding footy, seeing the Roosters get into the grand final instead of us. The Raiders was not as bad because, the Raiders haven't been there for a while. So if you're going to lose to someone, at least them. But the Panthers as well. But it's been a bit unfortunate because they've actually sort of come up against the really red-hot teams that have made the grand final in those 3 teams that I just mentioned. But the other thing is that I think they just really need to make the top 4 and win the first game of the finals, because in 2018, 2019, they made top 4 and lost both games. And, to make it the long way around is incredibly hard. And I think the only team to have done that in recent years is the Cowboys in 2015, when they actually lost to the Broncos in the first week and then went the long way and actually won it. But yeah, it's just one of those things that the team's just got to get done. Like the peace of mind will be there if they can win that first week of finals in a top 4 situation.
Yeah, no, 100%. Only other thing I mentioned to that point is the fact that obviously this year Origin's back to normal, and I feel like your squad's going to have quite a number of players in it this year with the back half form, and I predict the form that we're going to see from your team this year. So just managing that, we've seen a lot of teams in the come down factor from Origin perhaps slip off a little bit, and with if it's injury or just player burn off and things like that. So just making sure the club's on top of that, which I'm sure Wayne will. He's never been shy of resting players for a week or two just to get them back up, and I think he's an expert in that, which basically just leads us to the final thoughts and finishing position of South. And I've got him obviously in the top probably 3 of the season. For mine, I think, as I just mentioned, that point where I think Bennett's going to time him to make a run to the finals, which will be beneficial for your club. So you might lose a few games towards the back end, but it's just Wayne doing what Wayne does, getting the players primed for that big run into the finals, which I feel like he'll want to go out with a premiership, and he's got the chance with this squad. So yeah, I predict probably a bottom top 4 finish for South, but I reckon they'll go on and win the comp for mine. So what's your final thoughts on South and where you guys will finish?
Yeah, ideally, I've got that same thought process. But I mean, ideally, there's bias there, and also you never know what's going to happen. I think it's been really unfortunate the past couple of seasons because Souths have been up there, but they've just been overshadowed by teams who've hit form at the right time, or they've just been a little bit better when the moment sort of counts. But I guess if there's one team where there's that ability, there's that depth in the squad, and there's that motivation going back to Wayne, I think it is Souths. The problem is the fact that, the torch is on them media-wise. Like, people are going to be expecting Souths to win, and I think they actually work best when people aren't expecting them to, because if you look at the last 3 seasons, 2018, Anthony Seibold came in, and no one expected him to do anything, made the preliminary final. Then obviously there was the big switch up with Wayne coming in, and then you lose Greg Inglis, Sam Burgess, George Burgess. People didn't expect anything. And then beginning of 2020, everyone wrote us off, especially with John Sutton leaving, like, understandably so. People have reasons to do so. But now it's the first time in a while, probably since Michael Maguire came in, where there's actual expectation to do really well. So I think that's one thing that we've got to be a bit aware of. And I think that could play a part in either them succeeding or them not succeeding as much as we expect. But again, you got great recruitment, like probably one of the best recruiting hauls I've seen in an off-season house-wise, particularly because so many are unexpected. Mansour and Benji have come in the last month, and like, normally for other clubs, they're huge signings, but for us, it was sort of like, all right, let's patch up the depth, let's bring in some experience. But I am excited. I'm really excited to see what this team can do, particularly knowing that Melbourne most likely probably won't have Cameron Smith. The Roosters have sort of dropped off a little bit. Penrith have lost a lot of experience. And I think it'll be a South and Raiders grand final. I think everybody's really not giving the Raiders a chance, but I think people are really underestimating how good they are and how good a squad they have. So I'm hoping for a South Raiders grand final and South to win.
Yeah, I did a Raiders video yesterday, and I've actually rated them quite highly. So I've mentioned them right up there with you guys. I think they're same thing as their squad, but tune into the Raiders one to hear about that on a all you South fans with some Raiders talk. But look, Drake, really appreciate you coming on board. I know you've been a busy man lately, so with the page and with some other work-related things. So I really appreciate you coming on. South fans, you've got a great chance this year. Really get out there, support your team and club, and get behind them, because it's going to be a really, really good year. Obviously, we don't know anything with injuries. It could quickly change that, but from now on, a healthy roster, you guys will be right up there when it matters. So go give the page, as I said. I like the Rugby League Modern Day Prince. He does some wonderful work there. And Dre, thanks for coming on.
Awesome, Joel. Thanks for having me, man. Anytime you want to talk anything South or Rugby League, happy to come on.
I'm sure throughout the season I'll be doing that with you. So thank you.